right, we have a quorum. We will get started. First up, and Zandra, I don't know if you've had a chance to review the meeting minutes or not. Our first action is to approve our meeting minutes, so we're looking for a motion on the minutes of November 18th, 2020. We have a motion. And I will, you were there. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, Chip, there are your meeting minutes. I'm sorry, Adam, there are your meeting minutes. Up next, we will turn it over to staff. Want to do an introduction? Just go right to Casella.
Sure. So why don't I just say that the first part of this meeting tonight is going to be involving Casella. We have representatives that can introduce themselves here in a second to talk about industry happenings that they're seeing, and then the second part of the meeting is we're gonna get into a non-public session where we'll review solid waste performance and that sort of stuff. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I'd be happy to start out.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Groshon. I'm the market area manager for Casella Waste Management for southeastern New Hampshire and northeastern Massachusetts. I'm responsible for 2 hauling divisions, one based out of Belmont and Salem, New Hampshire. And then I have 4 transfer stations. We operate, obviously, the city of Concord's transfer station. We also operate the town of Raymond's transfer station. And then we have a transfer station co-located with our Belmont hauling division in Belmont, New Hampshire. And then we also operate a transfer station in Allenstown, New Hampshire. Pete Burnham to my far right here, he is the site manager for the Belmont division. The Belmont division is who provides the curbside collection program for the city of Concord, as well as they do operate the city of Concord's transfer station. So Pete is here, and then I have Kevin Roy here, who is the general manager of our landfill, of the NCES landfill in Bethlehem, New Hampshire. And Kevin will talk a little bit about disposal, both our current facility and then our the application process we're going through with the Granite State landfill.
I apologize. Your first names again. I didn't write them down. Pete, Kevin, and
Brian.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So, as I'm sure you're aware, the current contract with the city for the curbside program and disposal is set to expire June 30th of 2024. So we've had some informal discussions with Jeff, Chip, and Adam. And around our discussions, one of the challenges that presents itself is disposal. North Country landfill is set to close in 2026. And as we talk about renewals and extensions and long-term disposal capacity, that's an obvious talking point. So Kevin's here to talk a little bit about what we're doing as a company in regards to the landfill, and then I'll be able to kind of bring that full circle with some of the challenges that we're experiencing today from a hauling perspective in providing the services. So Kevin, if you want to go ahead and take it off on the Granite State landfill.
Yeah, so the Granite State landfill, or if I could just go the GLS facility, is in the permitting process. The project started obviously when we became aware that the Bethlehem landfill was not going to be able to expand due to local zoning. There's a district in the town of Bethlehem that prohibits us to expand outside that district. So the company embarked on a search to site a new facility, a green site, which is expanding an existing facility difficult. You can imagine what it is citing a green site facility. But as we looked and did the search, we started at the southern end of the state. In the siting criteria, the size of the tract that you need, access materials for the facility, the buffer and all that, we landed on several parcels, and we narrowed it down as we got on those parcels down to the one in Dalton, which is the Granite State landfill. We need multiple permits, as you could imagine. We need a DOT access permit. There's an existing on the facility is an industrial facility setting. There are gravel pits. There was an asphalt plant. It's a large tract of land that has been forested over the decades. So the property allows itself for an expansion. We're looking at 130 some acre, 135 acre footprint. We need a DOT permit. We need a wetlands permit. We need that's a state wetlands permit. We need a federal Army Corps permit. We need a solid waste permit. We need an air permit. We need an AOT permit. And you can imagine, as we're going through this process, each set of comments and each set of feedback changes everything. You know, this agency has some comments. We integrated into the other application. So we recently had to just pull our wetlands application for that very reason. We were up against a deadline, and some of the feedback we were receiving, we just were not going to have a complete application. So trying to keep all the applications and all the agencies sort of in line and in sync with each other, we pulled that application. But the permitting process, the timeline that we have set forth for us is a 5-year process where we send in the applications, feedback, public hearings. We look to have permits in hand and constructed, hopefully in our mind, constructed before the closing of NCES in 2026.
And so if I can add a little bit to what Kevin's talked, just kind of gave you for information. Obviously, it's a lot. There's a lot of different permits required in order for us to, move in that direction of the GSL landfill. That takes time. And from a hauling standpoint, with the loss of that capacity, it's going to need to go somewhere else. And for me as a hauler in my logistic lanes, a lot of these facilities are regionally based. So for example, one of my hauling divisions is based in Salem, New Hampshire. And a lot of the trash that we collect in that part of the world ends up going to either the Wheelabrator incinerator in North Andover or the Covanta incinerator in Haverhill, Mass. When you take another facility, and then also in Massachusetts, what's occurred over the last 2 years is the closure of the Chicopee landfill in Massachusetts, the Southbridge landfill, and I think there was one more, I can't remember, but I know of those two for certain. The demand for disposal, for us to throw away hasn't changed. It's not like we're throwing away less, that stayed the same, but our capacity is shrinking. So you're really starting to find yourself at the cusp of a supply and demand situation.
That's a question.
Yeah.
As you go through your presentation,
yeah.
Do you prefer we ask questions as they come up? Would you like us to hold them till the end?
Yeah, we were hoping to kind of keep this conversational based. It's obviously a lot of information we're throwing at you. So if there's something that you don't understand, please, I would be more than happy to, talk through that.
So I don't want to get you off track.
Yeah.
You did mention a statistic that I feel compelled to ask about, which is obviously closures. The demand for landfill or incinerator space is not going away. So which leads to my question is, to what extent has it increased with the change in the recycling market? Has there been an increase with that demand?
So I guess so I think I understand what you're talking about. Back in 2017, 2018, China's national sword obviously changed the market significantly. The market has actually improved pretty dramatically since then. We've seen a very positive trend as of late, especially over the last 6 months.
Okay.
So the value to communities or to commercial entities to recycle is there now.
Good.
The value, it's the cost benefit of recycling is there.
That's a significant change.
Yes, it is. And so obviously that left, to your point, especially smaller municipalities to make some really tough decisions, about, what direction they wanted to go with their recycle program when they were, against these costs. And as I talk to a number of municipalities when we talk about curbside programs, that's one of the things I bring up as we talk about disposal is, when the recycle market went in the wrong direction and costs increased significantly, people had the ability to technically turn that program off. With disposal, as we continue to experience in that declining disposal capacity and as costs rise based on supply and demand, we don't have that presenting a solution to that problem.
Brian, a follow-up question.
Yep.
But the overall demand for disposal, has that remained stable over the last couple of years or increased?
Yeah, I don't know the actual statistic, but I think you're seeing a gradual growth, but you're small percentages, but yeah.
And do you know if that's New Hampshire based or regional?
The overall demand for
Yeah.
disposal?
Because some of the facilities here take disposal from out of state, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure of, what the percentage of volume coming into Pennacook is, if that's what your question is. I don't know what they take for out-of-state waste offhand. But the overall demand and the impact, and the reason I talked about it, and I don't want to I can jump ahead now, but basically what we're happening in the current state is all the landfills, the incinerators are aging, they're old. And because of this decline in capacity, the demand to utilize those facilities is greater. So they're basically operating at capacity. And over the last year, they're old facilities, they're 30-plus-year-old facilities, they're experiencing a lot of unscheduled outages. And that waste can only move when they can burn it. So when they can't burn it, it's got to go somewhere else. And in some cases, it's moving it to a landfill. In our facility out of Allenstown, some of that material does get tractored to incinerators. But when that facility is shut off, as I move that New Hampshire volume, I'm now bringing it to Kevin's facility, and it's put him up against his annual capacity. We are just one example of many. It's also occurring at the other disposal sites, not only within the state, but as well as those facilities we use in Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Yep. So sorry, I kind of got off topic
No,
there, but I just wanted to kind of be able to bring things full circle.
All relevant, all good questions. We were basically talking about how disposal has stayed relatively constant, but there can be fewer and fewer facilities as we go forward.
Right, yeah, it's going to ebb and flow with the economy, right? I mean, if you look at what just happened in Kentucky as of recent, right? When you have a natural disaster like that occur, that's going to obviously impact disposal in that area, in that region. Fortunately, we're not very lucky, right? Something like that hasn't occurred in our part of the world, but if it were to happen, it would have a significant impact. And so that's why we're talking about it. So if you want to kind of pick, I can talk about the MRF piece if you'd like.
Well, yeah, so as part of the Granite State landfill, that's a good piece to mention. There is a MRF component to the application.
Yeah, so a material recovery facility, MRF, we're bad in acronyms, but it's a material recovery facility. Casella owns and operates several of those facilities around the Northeast. The material that's generated in Concord currently goes to either our material recovery facility in Lewiston, Maine, or our material recovery facility in Auburn, Massachusetts. We have another facility in Boston, but just again, the way the supply chain works, logistic channels, that's where the material from Concord currently goes. What the Granite State landfill, the other component is to actually construct a material recovery facility somewhere in the central New Hampshire region.
Is that the new term for recycling center?
It's called a manufacturing plant. It's a mechanical process where, in the city of Concord, all your material is consolidated. That facility then separates it out into its own individual commodities.
Excuse me, Brian, so
yep.
Just for clarity, they don't process the material to make a new material, they separate it so it can go to a place that takes the paper and makes new paper, and takes the plastic and makes new plastic.
Yeah,
They
yep.
just bail it out.
I appreciate it. I guess in my mind, it's the location where single stream recycling goes to be sorted before it goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of single stream recycling, that now these guys have to deal with everything we throw in the box that contaminates or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they're stuck with dealing with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely an education component to that program for sure. Absolutely.
Has your name on it now.
So another component of that, as we look to expand upon some of our material management, is we have a really great relationship with Goodwill Northern New England and have for many years. We currently support their facility in Hudson, New Hampshire, which is a central location for them to process a lot of the material they accept. we would co-locate those in one central location at our MRF. We do experience receiving a lot of textiles, you know, people thinking that, you know, you call it the wishful recycling. It's all these items that, you know, there is a reuse for them, right? You can, you know, clothes, anything you wear, you have, you know, boxes around, you know, municipalities, you can drop them off for Planet Aid, et cetera. But our MRF can't accept that material. That's not part of the material that we, you know, separate out and sell in the commodities market. But going into that joint venture will allow us to take and manage that material better moving forward. So something that this part of New Hampshire doesn't have. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. Any questions so far about what we've kind of talked about?
So it's kind of going through your presentation
Yeah.
checklist here. It looks like we're down to limited disposal capacity, and near the end of it, disposal wait times and commercial driver shortages.
Yeah, I was going to just have Kevin talk about North Country a little bit and what we're doing today. He does have a pretty neat DARPA project going on right now that I want him to be able to talk about. And then, yeah, you can
Thank you.
on there.
I had a question just before we move on.
Yeah.
On the MRF, I haven't actually looked at the Granite State landfill application. Is that part of the application? Like the MRF has been identified, like a location has been identified?
It's in this, so as you know, when you apply for a solid waste application, you have to provide a public benefit statement at the beginning of that application. In that public benefit statement, we make the commitment of supplying that or building that MRF in this part of the state to obviously divert materials going into the landfill.
But that would be a separate application.
Well, we'd have to get the permits to build,
Yeah.
obviously, the MRF. We're still in the process of working on that location.
Okay.
But it's committed in the permit, so it would be a condition of the permit
Got it.
that we develop that part of it.
And if you could just tell us what the MRF actually is.
That's the
Material
material.
recovery.
Material recovery.
That's the DC, the sourcing facility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gail, I was asking for you on that. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. You want to talk about your
Got
facility?
that?
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt you again,
Yeah.
but just so you guys know, I work for Sanborn Head, so I'm involved with a bunch of the solid waste projects and with you guys and others.
And some of you may know me. I work at DES.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just so you understand where some of the questions are coming from.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
gotcha.
comments, just
Appreciate
so,
it.
Yep.
yeah.
Excellent.
So we were just getting into NCES, again, the landfill that services 150 communities, all of the transfer stations that Brian mentioned, that's the end disposal. The capacity, the current permit will reach capacity in 2026. But we are currently in the process of constructing our RNG plant, Renewable Natural Gas plant. It's the first in the state, first in New England. We were fortunate but unfortunate not to be able to do an energy recovery facility at Bethlehem all these years due to the lack of infrastructure. We would have to do an overbuild. We could make electricity, we just didn't have the capacity or the infrastructure to transmit that electricity that we built. That left us sitting idle with no project. So what has made this RNG plant possible is the ability to truck the product. So after we process the gas, clean the methane from the landfill gas, we'll be able to truck that material, truck that RNG, that gas to market. And Liberty Utility is purchasing that gas, and it'll come down to the Concord area, be pumped into the pipeline and used for heating homes. So very exciting. That really circles the loop and creates an emission-free landfill, because right now our emission from the facility is not the landfill itself, it's from the combustion of that gas, right? We have two flares that are burning 27 CFM right now, landfill gas. All that gas goes into the process. The first phase of the process is to capture the methane, which is almost 54%, 52% of the gas. 45–46% of that gas is then CO2. That's the second part of the process. They're looking to market the CO2, commercial grade CO2. So that'll be the second half of the project. Well after the landfill closes, as you know, we'll be producing gas for 20–25 years. That project will continue. Very exciting project. That's 24/7 that we'll be doing gas recovery. That is also in our, obviously, performing our plans for the Granite State landfill to have that ability to do that. And also there is enough property surrounding and enough area around that facility that we're looking to possibly bring into industry. We tried that in Bethlehem, that was part of the proposal. We were looking to develop a not just an RNG, but a resource recovery industrial plant where we can use both the RNG, the geothermal, so we capture the geothermal off the landfill. That's also going off to the Redarta project, the RNG project. So they'll be heating the building. They have so much heat, they're going to put a snow melt system in that just have excess heat, tons of heat. And then landfills, as you know, closed landfills on the slopes, you put solar panels. So we are looking at long-term asset around the landfill and to entice other businesses to come and use the renewable resources that the landfill provides. Bethlehem is becoming that model. What's that?
I can appreciate the innovative thinking, certainly the business modeling around that. I think we've come a long way from my childhood days, just open landfills, just dumping stuff in and plowing dirt over it, so.
It's come a long way. You know, the Title V and the air permits, that what you have to do to be compliant to capture all that gas, to eliminate the greenhouse capture effect. The systems are in place, you know, and the fact that we're just flaring it is just not acceptable. So that the RNG plant, and this is the company that we partnered with, Redarta. This is their flagship. They're going to build two more at least at a minimum two more for our company. But they're really looking at the industry, and the RNG industry is really booming right now. Companies are really looking for that renewable part in the performa, just like they did with wind and solar. But the RNG is really exciting because it's being produced and it's a greenhouse gas, and we all want it to be captured and utilized. So that's the project. I think that was it with
That's great.
the landfill and NCES.
Any other questions regarding that facility at all?
Anybody in the committee? Staff, if you have questions too, please jump in.
Just to make sure I understand, NCS is North Country Environmental Services.
That is correct.
So the page 4 says the earliest anticipated closure date is August 16th, 2021. What is that? That was before.
That was before your recent.
The 21. That was before the 21 million tons of capacity shortfall.
No, it's the table on page 4 of the presentation. Yeah, it shows NCES earliest anticipated closure date, April 16th, 2021.
I think that was prior.
That is correct.
Expansion.
Good catch. That was prior to our receiving our permit last year and operational approval in early March. So without the stage 6 permit approval, we would have been out of capacity in 2021. Stage 6 gives us a little over 1 million cubic yards of capacity. And our public benefit and our permit requires us to stay open until the end of 2026. It limits our capacity. It's the first time ever that we're managing our capacity based on in-place cubic yards. Usually they give you a tonnage limit, and you have to meet the timeline, and the tonnage can move around. They're very specific in this permit, and they're stating that we can only take 230,000 cubic yards in place. So that includes your daily cover, your intermediate cover, and the waste that you're placing in. So this year was our first year managing it that way. So it limited us to basically 155, 160 tons a year because you have to use cover, and that takes up capacity. Good catch.
Copy editor.
Any other questions? So we already talked a little bit about the waste energy facilities. Obviously the most applicable probably to this group here that you're aware of is the Concord facility. And again, what I would like to reiterate with these facilities as we continue to see a declining disposal capacity is that they're aging equipment. Their capacity is, and their ability to accept material is totally dependent upon their ability to burn. And as they experience outages, it's going to have a ripple effect across the disposal market. The other challenge that we're starting to see, and you see it with some of the changes that have occurred in Massachusetts, and those effects and impacts are starting to work their way north, is disposal wait times. So as you talk about a curbside program, with the city of Concord and some of the municipalities, if you look at municipalities in, Massachusetts and even southern New Hampshire, haulers like myself going to Covanta or Wheelabrator it's not uncommon for a truck that's out there collecting en route to wait 3+ hours at that facility before it can dump out. We were talking a little bit about commercial driver shortages, right? We're trying to do more with less. And then you have that occur. We still have federal motor carrier safety regulations that we have to adhere to with hours of service. And so what's happening is some municipalities aren't getting collected, or their collection is being delayed. And for me, it's a little bit of foreshadowing. You know, is that totally directive? You know, to me, it's some foreshadowing on what could possibly occur as you start to see more and more, as we start to see disposal capacity come off the market. And so to me, as a municipality, as you know, for the city of Concord, you know, that's something that from a hauler standpoint, I want people to be aware of the challenges that we experience every day just to make it happen. So.
I don't want to make an assumption. Where is the majority of Concord's trash going now?
So all the Concord material, it either goes to either the Allenstown or Belmont facility, and then it goes to North Country for the trash, as well as the construction demolition debris. The recycle, again, that will go to the Belmont transfer station, gets loaded in tractor trailers, and then trucked to either, like I said, Lewiston, Maine, or Auburn, Massachusetts.
Are those facilities experiencing those lengthy wait times that you mentioned?
So currently with Belmont, we're not experiencing those wait times. So what is happening today, because facilities are nearing their capacity and Kevin is reaching his airspace capacity for the year, is that I have actually stopped taking third-party volume into those facilities that are non-contracted volume. So there's little haulers out there that unfortunately I had to tell them, you can't utilize my facility anymore. And for those, it's a hard conversation to have. I don't like having it at all. And you know, but this is some of the impact that we're experiencing today. I've actually, part of my business, which is the roll-off line of business, which does a lot of contractor work, I've actually stopped selling a lot of that work. You know, I'm not taking any new business because I don't have the capacity to take that volume right now. So it's definitely a ripple effect for sure. So to obviously bring things full circle, this is a big talking point, right? You know, as we continue to venture down the path of pursuing the Granite State landfill, there's going to be a lot of discussion had. There's going to be a lot of discussion, at the State House regarding this. There's going to be bills put in place to help prevent our pursuit of this landfill. For me, and I'm sure Kevin would say the same thing, is we want people to be engaged in the conversation. We want you to know what's going on. For me, as from the hauler side, I want people to understand what I'm experiencing today and some of the challenges that we're going to start facing in the future. Not only with disposal, but with labor. You know,
Well,
labor
so
is going to be
challenges are, less than 5 years away.
Yeah.
Given the closure of the landfill. Obviously, I think you made part of your initial statement. You have a trash has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And there needs to be an outlet for it. Otherwise, we have a public safety issue.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just curious, are you saying that recyclables has become more feasible? I mean, for a while there, no one wanted to take recyclables because you spent more money on gas for a diesel truck.
Yep.
Right? So is that still a problem?
So right now, I can tell you the city of Concord has a great deal on recycling.
We're very well aware of that.
Yeah. So a lot of municipalities, we moved to a formula-based system. So there is a processing cost. There's a cost for us to process and market that material. There's also a transportation cost associated with us loading it into the tractors and then transferring it to the facility. We take that number, that's kind of a fixed cost. And then what we subtract out of that is the average commodity revenue, the value of those commodities out on the market. So it takes a certain percentage of tin, aluminum, plastics, paper, news, cardboard, the average value of those at market, puts it into a formula, and that generates your average commodity revenue per ton. We subtract that off of that trans and hauling cost. Back in 2018, what occurred is when you put that formula into play, your per ton disposal cost for recycle was almost double that of municipal solid waste trash. We've seen a very, like I said, over the last really 6 to 9 months, we've seen the market go in a very positive direction that now it's going back where the cost of a per ton of disposal of recycle is much less than the per ton cost of trash disposal. So it's a commodity, right? It's just like gasoline, any other commodity out there. It'll fluctuate with the market, but right now we are seeing a very positive trend. The company in Casella has invested a lot into our infrastructure. Actually, our material recovery facility in Boston is going through a brand new retrofit. We're putting brand new equipment in there to allow us to achieve a better quality material, be able to process material faster, more efficiently, require less labor, again, help control costs, and provide greater value back to our customers.
So that better quality material is being bought up or being used more readily than it was?
Yeah.
$100?
Yeah, so we found a lot of domestic markets for the material. I'm not, and I apologize, Bobby Capadonna, who is our VP of Recycling, wasn't able to make it here today. But I know that because of what occurred in 2018, we've been able to find a lot of domestic markets for our material. As of, I don't know, the last 2 to 3 years, 9 Dragons, a Chinese-based company, has bought old paper mills in the Northeast. They bought the Old Town, Maine paper mill, the Rumford, Maine paper mill. Basically, they're using those facilities to use either organic material, freshly cut trees, or material that we generate to create pulp. And they're taking that pulp and then sending it back to China, I believe, to remanufacture the paper products.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So I was just going to comment that earlier this year, the state legislature had some new rules come out or laws come out related to solid waste, and one of which is to have a new solid waste state plan by October of 2022. So that's in the process. It's one of Mike's jobs right now. So that would be informative to this group when that plan is, because that's a statewide plan. And there's a whole bunch of other pending legislation for, like Brian said, specific to projects or just in general recycling and other things. But the current law has waste reduction goals in it, not mandates, but goals. So just so folks know that there is, the State House is concerned about solid waste in the state.
That's going to be very important to understand what that plan means for Concord. So I'm glad you mentioned these are the kind of things that I don't keep track of. So, did you have a chance to finish your presentation?
Yeah, I think we're pretty well wrapped up. Any questions?
Please.
Yeah, I just had a couple other questions. Given the dialogue around the Granite State facility that you're looking to put in place, do you have alternative locations? Like, give me the lay of the land there. So if things don't go your way at the State House, what is option 2?
We currently do not have option 2. The permitting process is long, very extensive. A lot of investment has already been made, and it's time, right? That's why we're having this discussion now. We're talking a five-year plan just to try to permit and potentially construct. There is no alternative plan for Casella at this point.
And then a follow-up to that, you mentioned ordinances that are affecting the Bethlehem facility from expanding. Are there ordinances in the surrounding towns in the near the Granite State landfill? I know there was talk of any, but have any passed?
There is some. Dalton has passed some emergency zoning, right?
Zoning which is causing roadblocks for development of the.
So it's emergency zoning. They have to formalize some permanent zoning at that time, and we'll take that into consideration at the time it gets passed.
Understood. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Casella? Staff all set? Thank you very much. It's been incredibly helpful, very informative. between now and when our contract expires in 2024, we have a lot of work to do, and understanding the state's plan, understanding the markets, understanding a potential lack of a market for disposables, all has to be considered, so.
Yep.
I have to say, I'm very pleased from last time we met, that we've actually seen some changes in the recyclable market.
Yeah.
It's a positive thing, you know, not just for, you know, disposal, but, you know, for all the benefits that recycling does for the environment and everything else, so I'm pleased to hear that's coming back a little bit, so.
Yeah, no,
Overall.
it's, yeah, across the board, it's a great thing to see, and, yeah, we're definitely happy about it as well.
I hope you continue to work with city staff, and,
Yeah,
you know, certainly collaboratively, we'll get through whatever we need to.
great. Well, I appreciate your time. Again, we're all here in New Hampshire, so anytime you wanna continue or have more questions, you know, please don't hesitate to get us involved in the conversation. We want that.
We'll certainly fund anything in the interim through that.
Yeah.
And then perhaps in the future, we'll have you back for another update.
Okay, great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.